On episode 164 of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we will talk with Elle Russ on her book, The Paleo Thyroid Solution, Stop Feeling Fat, Foggy, and Fatigued at the Hands of Uninformed Doctors. Reclaim Your Health. The show notes for this episode can be found at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/164. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. On this podcast, we get into veganism, ketosis, and today paleo. I've been asked which one is the right one. The short answer is the one that works for you. One of the advantages of Forever Fitness personal training is that we customize the food and the training to work for you. If you're tired of not making progress, of the confusing information out there, it's time to join me. Don't miss out on your opportunity to lock in the best annual rate. I'm closing the doors soon, and when I reopen, it will be more. Go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/ready, and you can get started right now. Elle Russ is a writer, actor, health and life coach, and the host of the Primal Blueprint podcast. I'm excited to have this talk with Elle because she's an alumna of Second City, the famous sketch comedy and improv in Chicago. She currently lives in Malibu, California. So let's go talk with Elle. So Elle, welcome to 40 Plus Fitness.
Hi, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
I was really excited to get somebody from the Primal Blueprint family on the show because I have kind of been predominantly primal for the last 4 years and sometimes going as far as ketogenic. I haven't really had a whole lot of conversations on the podcast with someone that's really knowledgeable about that. And then a lot of my clients that I've dealt with have told me that they have thyroid issues. So this is kind of an opportunity for me to really marry two topics that are really close to heart. And I really am appreciative to have this opportunity to have this conversation with you.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm appreciative too that I'm even able to combine these two in a book and get the information out to your listeners and to anyone who wants to just feel better.
Yeah. And the fact that you worked at Second City, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Cause I
didn't work there. I performed there. Yeah. Even better.
Well, I say work there, but I mean, that's what I mean is to be an actor and to be a part of that. That's a lot of talent. And when I've been up there, I've enjoyed the times that I've gone to the improv there and just enjoyed the quality of the talent in the show. Yeah, it is. It just really is.
It is great. It's honestly what kind of made me a writer too. When you write sketch comedy like that and you're doing hundreds and hundreds of shows and you're not only writing your own sketches and performing, but then you're in shows with other people. And that's really what truly made me a writer many years ago was the years and years of that. But I too used to go see the shows and be like, I want to do that. And, then I did. So for me, one of my dreams come true was being a main stage member at a comedy theater. And when I came out to Los Angeles and did sketch comedy and improv out here, I did achieve that goal. And honestly, even though those gigs are not paid, you're doing sketch comedy live in front of 100 people. Those aren't usually, no one's making money at that really, but it didn't matter because the joy and it's just such fun. It's so much fun. All you do is laugh all the time. Your face hurts. It's so great.
Yeah. And again, it's just, I was just really kind of thrown away with just the talent of, it's like, wow. I mean, they go away for a second and they're playing off of each other. And I know they've done this, for a while, but it just the creativity and the sheer talent and the guts to stand up and do that. I can't compliment you enough for what you did because again, I understand. I've never done it, but I just imagine I could spend hours preparing for a speech, a public address, and I enjoy doing that. But I can tell you the preparation I go into, and you guys walk off for 3 minutes and come back out and perform just this awesome sketch is just amazing.
Well, and actually, just to throw out to the audience, if anyone out there is interested in the arts or acting or like speaking and you're fearful of it, the best thing to do to get rid of any kind of fear of public performing is to do improv, because when you take an improv class, even if you don't want to be an improviser, it's the most frightening thing. It is so frightening. It's awkward. You fail. You're weird. Sometimes you're trying to be funny. It's not. And it's such a safe, wonderful environment to do that, that I could go into an auditorium filled with 25,000 people right now, would not even be nervous in the slightest, because nothing is more nerve-wracking than improv. So it's great for anybody who wants to just get out of their shell a little bit or fight some fears. If you've got to do some, speeches at the office or public speaking, or just weird in a crowd at company events. I mean, those kind of things, improv can really help.
Yeah, because with improv, you're actually trying to get a reaction out of them. With other public speaking, I think you almost just want them to not respond. So it's got to be a lot different. But again, it was just really awesome to have this conversation with you. And your book, comprehensive, complete, and I just think spot on. I really did appreciate your approach to this, because, and I've had this conversation on here before, that yes, your doctor's there to help you, but your doctor is following particular sets of protocols that were drilled into their heads when they went to medical school, and they don't want to slip up, because there's just too much at risk with their career if they don't just follow and toe the line of what they were taught and what the profession's going to do. And in reading the book, I mean, there are things that I went through and I thought, I really kind of thought I knew a lot of this stuff, but I can tell you, I didn't really know a lot about the reverse T3. I'd never really heard of that before. So that was like a new concept. And I'm like, you did your research. That's for sure with this book. And I just appreciate.
Went through it. Yeah. that was the worst research part of the research was that. And that was the part I wish I could have skipped. But
I get that. But I think that again just kind of shows the passion of what you brought to this project. And that's what made it real. And again, you put your all into the book, and it's obvious from the quality of what we've got here as a resource. So
I'm very proud of it. And I honestly kind of say this, which I think is true. It's like a Toni Morrison quote, but it's one of those things where it's like, if there's a book you're looking for and you can't find it, then you need to write that book. And I did. And I added things in here that no other thyroid book has, that I was looking for at the time. And it is comprehensive and detailed, and I wanted it to be that way. And I wanted I knew the subject already. I just thought, well, I wish I had this in a book. So, I mean, it's just so great to finally have it now and be able to help people on a broader scale than just running into people with thyroid problems and helping them in person, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And just the number of people that will in their lifetime struggle with thyroid issues. It's just great to have a resource like this.
Yeah. I mean, it's an epidemic, really. It's really insane and it's on the rise. So, it's even more of something to look out for. And even if people are listening and they don't have a thyroid problem, you still have a thyroid gland if it's working right. And if it's not, but even if it's working correctly and you're still interested in fitness and overall health, then optimizing and treating all of the underlying factors involved in its success would behoove every human being, because we all have a thyroid gland. And if you don't, you're dead. Or if you don't have a thyroid gland, you've replaced it with the thyroid hormones that the gland doesn't have anymore. But the bottom line is that it's essential to life and quality of life, no matter who you are, whether you're suffering now or haven't suffered yet. Hopefully you won't. But this is also how to prevent that too. It's really important to draw the attention of this master gland to everybody out there. It's all a part of it. Yeah.
So in the book, you kind of start out, or you get into kind of these problem-solving principles, which I really enjoy. I'm a very principles-based person. I like kind of having these, for a lack of a better, I know that you can't have black and white rules all the time. So you set principles that kind of give you a guideline for how to move forward. And so I want to kind of go through those principles for problem solving your thyroid, because, I do think this is extremely empowering and something that everybody should take to note when they're dealing with not just a thyroid issue, but I think that you could have just called this problem solving for any medical condition, because
that's right.
It really is universal.
How to run from uninformed doctors. Yeah.
But it really is. I mean, and again, it's not the doctor's fault. I think they're following their protocols, but you have to empower yourself. So the first thing, your first principle is do your own research.
I'll expand on that. So you have to do your own research. And one of the biggest problems or things that I see was my failing at it back in the day, when a doctor just said, your thyroid's fine, just keep working out, which is what a lot of people get. And I should have done some research then, because I trusted him, and he actually hurt me and furthered my progress. And I went undiagnosed and had a lot of horrible health problems as a result. And had it been nipped in the bud then. So I wish I would have done my research, but also I will say this. I ever almost, in fact, 99.9% of every person that I've met who's on thyroid hormone has no idea what it is, how it works, how it affects the body, zero. And that's just going to be a losing path. Do you know what I mean? So you have to take responsibility. If you've been diagnosed with something, get into it, learn about it. If you're just looking for a doctor to help you, that is the first mistake. You know what I mean? And oftentimes you can teach your doctor something, or you might know more about an issue than they do, but you've got to start to learn it yourself. Now, the only reason I had to is because I was left in the dust by doctors. So I had no choice but to be my own doctor, dose myself, do my own blood work. Scary place to be, not fun. But the thing is that the reason I was successful twice in 10 years, one with regular hypothyroidism, the second bout was a reverse T3 problem. The reason I was successful is because I did do the research. I wish I had had a doctor to help me. That's great. But in doing that, I also learned and was able to help others too. So that's another reason too, because it's such an epidemic, anyone who's out there, learn about it to not only help yourself, but then you can pay it forward and help other people on the right path, because you're going to run into people with thyroid problems. They're everywhere. So definitely do your own research. And then, there's just too many people with, in this country with diseases and health problems. Someone says, oh, you have type 2 diabetes, take this pill. And then that's it. Where's the research? There's a lot of people who can prevent going on insulin if they do it the natural way. They don't even know that, because they just, again, putting all their faith in a doctor. And that, again, is, I think, just a very bad call.
And then the next one was follow your gut.
That's right. So, and I'm going to contradict what I first just said too about doctor. I mean, even if you find a good doctor, even if you find someone that's great who's helped you, you still have to follow your gut on everything. Even if they suggest a supplement and something doesn't feel right to you, or whatever it is, even if you've trusted them and then they've done great with some other areas of your health, always follow your gut. If something's not right, it's not right, particularly when you're dealing with an uninformed doctor, because a lot of patients get patronized by their doctors, or I should say allow themselves to be patronized. And we put such faith and such bow down to the MD from Harvard. And then if a doctor says that's ridiculous, you don't need to get your B12 tested, that's stupid, a patient can cower as if they're the king of the kingdom and you're the lowly subject. And what is that about? You're paying them for your health. So it's a little bit of a level of empowerment to stand up and go, just because someone has an MD doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. And if you're patronized by a doctor or made to feel stupid in any way, or they're not listening to you, that doesn't feel good. You get out, you run, you go find another doctor. You got to follow your gut there. I had a lot of those scenarios, and it felt bad and wrong. And I even cried. One of them, you're already emotional and weak when you have no thyroid hormones and you're screwed. So you're already overly sensitive. And then to have a doctor laugh in your face at a suggestion of a blood work can bring a patient to tears, and it certainly did it for me.
Well, it was kind of funny you said Harvard, because I was actually reading an article in Harvard today, one of their papers, and the author of the paper said that yes, this diet would be very, very effective, but it's very, very hard. So we just need to find a pill to solve this problem. And I was like, oh my God.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's make it all easy, as easy as possible.
They're not going to stop eating crap. So let's just find a pill to make this go away. But your third principle was take copious notes.
Oh yeah. That's really important along the process, especially if you are feeling ill, because also brain function is compromised when you're having thyroid issues. Sometimes retaining memory of things can be poor. So taking copious notes on your symptoms, what you're feeling. If you wake up every day and all of a sudden you have some weird symptom, like one of the weird symptoms out of the 30 that I had that's in my book is really insane, any inner itching of the ears. Anything that feels off or weird, you got to track. Or if you're tracking vitals, taking notes there, like tracking blood pressure or temps, which I talk about in my book and people should do along the way, because it does help with knowing where you are with optimization if you're going to go on thyroid hormone. And so taking copious notes is important, because had I not done that, I was doing it myself for me, because I was my own doctor, but I was also doing it in the hopes that one day I would find a doctor and I would be able to finally have a doctor maybe prescribe me T3 only at the time. And I was hoping that I could prove to them that I was smart enough of a patient. And if I took all these notes, I'm showing, this compliance. Those notes weren't used for that. They were used for something in the book that I never expected that I'd be used for. But I think when you step up and you take notes like that, and not only do you have a record of where you were, so that if, you ever have a moment where gratitude is slipping, you can always look back for that, but also because you have a gauge of what's going away, what feels good, what doesn't. If you're starting hormone and you have an issue or you get a headache, it's just important to write these things down and keep notes. It could be even something like you've noticed you're really sensitive to sound and you can't listen to music anymore. That's something that happens when you have adrenal fatigue. Sometimes they're not even noticeable until later. So it's not that you may be able to catch everything, but you should take as detailed notes as possible. And that also will help a doctor help you too. And I share people, in the book, details on how to take temps and things like that, which you definitely need notes for. And tracking progress. So I think just keeping a detailed account of what's happening to you and if new symptoms show up or what's going on or what this doctor said or didn't say, or just getting copies of your blood work, that could be included in maybe even taking copious notes, is having that nearby. So that's a really important one.
Okay. And the thyroid, because it is such an important part of our lives that, we can't live without it. You are going to need to find the right doctor. So seeking doctor's help is still going to be a critical aspect of getting what you need.
Right. And seeking, the right kind of doctors, which I'll share with everyone now. Usually the most knowledgeable doctors about the subject are functional medicine doctors who are also integrative or anti-aging doctors. Usually functional medicine doctors have training in anti-aging, orthomolecular medicine, and integrative medicine, truly integrative. Those are the doctors that spend an hour with you, that go above and beyond, that are worth every penny, and will go above and beyond and do some in-depth testing and see all the different variables involved, which are absolutely applicable. You go, those are usually the best doctors. The worst doctors are endocrinologists classically. They are the most indoctrinated. They're the most ego-based, and they are also entrenched in the old paradigm. Just as if back in the day, they say fat's bad for you, don't eat coconut, don't eat, saturated fat, it'll give you a heart attack and heart disease. We know that's not true now because we now know from the science and everything else in the false studies. But it's the same thing, like endocrinologists are still entrenched in old paradigms and really haven't gone above and beyond what they learned 30, 40 years ago. So seeking a doctor's help, yes, but be careful and be diligent about who it is that you're seeking out. And if you can't spend money on such a doctor, then, you do something like you read my book, you become educated, and hopefully you can work with a doctor that's willing to work with you, even if they are one of those sort of just regular MDs who might, you might find one that's open. Also DOs, a doctor of osteopathy or osteopathic medicine, they often also really know what's up with the latest thyroid stuff. So right away, that's just a tip off to people. And if anyone's curious, just the doctor on my book has great credentials, and his website's middlepathmedicine.com. And you can always look at his bio and see what his teaching and credentials, and all of his stuff is, and try to match that, look for someone similar, or go to the functional medicine website and search for functional medicine doctors. So those are really the best. But seek a doctor's help. I mean, I would have loved that. I did seek out doctor's help. I couldn't find one, so I had to do it myself. So it's funny for me to say that, because then as the next principle, it's kind of funny. It says, don't rely solely on your doctor. So it's like, oh, that seems contradictory. No, I mean, it's part about taking responsibility for your health, looking into what they're suggesting or not suggesting. I mean, I willy-nilly took things that doctors told me to take that I wish I didn't. One doctor at one point, when I had a reverse T3 problem, tested everything, and I was just, she was like, I don't know what to tell you about this weight gain and this focus, mental focus in your brain. I don't know. And she gave me phentermine, which is a methamphetamine-based weight loss drug, which blew my adrenals out even further. But I didn't even think about it. I just trusted her. Again, I even been through this once. So, you can still drop the ball even when you're not knowledgeable. I'll never do that again. But even if a doctor says, hey, take this supplement, well, look into it a little bit first yourself. Just see where your gut's right. Maybe you feel more comfortable taking 1,000 milligrams instead of 5,000 at first, or whatever. So that's also part of follow your gut. Don't solely rely on them. You want to combine your research and what you feel is right. And you definitely want to get, second and third opinions if you're not feeling good about stuff. And even if you are, it could behoove you to get a few opinions if you have the money and the wherewithal to do that. So.
Well, and this is important enough. You make the investment in your health. You've got enough money to do this because you don't have enough money to not do this.
Yeah, it's going to be more expensive to get cancer and polycystic ovarian syndrome and all sorts of other things. And I really would love for these old doctors that hurt me to pay for my surgery bill that had to happen as a result of being in a hypothyroid state that they kept me in. But did they? I didn't do my part either. And so again, we've got this false paradigm of you go to the doctor. I'm sure you've heard this. I've had this kind of laugh when this happens. Like someone will go and meet a new doctor for the first time, even if they don't have a problem, just, normal checkup. And you're just like, oh, how was it? And I've heard this like, oh, they're great. They're wonderful. I'm so excited about them. And all that doctor did was like look in their ears and look in their throat. How do they know they're a great doctor? Because they had a good personality? Because they had a nice office? Because they had a degree on the wall? How do you know they're good?
They spent 3 more minutes with them than the last doctor did, which is 50% more. And so this doctor's a little bit more patient.
These are not gauges by which you judge competence, right? Like we don't judge competence in other areas either. I don't let someone fly the plane just because they've got a great personality. You know what I mean? I want to see how many hours they've spent in the air. What's their, so until a doctor's treated you or helped you or not helped you with something, you can't know whether or not. And this is another one I've heard. I've heard people be like, my doctor tested me for everything. I'm fine. Oh, really? What'd they test you for? Do you know? Have you looked? BS. Calling BS on that. That's unacceptable to me now from this patient perspective. And in general, the fact that anyone would just say that's a losing game too.
I have a doctor right now. If I walked in his office and told him I was still alive, I think he would just be surprised because, back 20 years ago, I had high cholesterol. And he was like, you're not going to live to 40. And I was like,
he said that to you?
Okay, yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And then, there was a period of time when I got on a statin because, again, it was the third or fourth doctor that had told me this. And then I'm laying on the side of the road. My muscles in my legs had just completely given out. And I'm like, okay, the doctors mean well and they're in there, but you have to be a partner. And this is not a coach player thing. This is a business where you guys are going in to manage your health together. And you actually have seniority over that doctor. You can fire that doctor if you don't feel like that doctor really has your best interest. So you have to make that doctor work for the amount of money because they're making the money with that bill. So give them the research, give them what you've learned because you've done your research, you've taken notes, and hand it to them and say, look at this, look at my data, look at my labs, look at what I've done. And look at this work, look at these reports, look at these research studies.
And that action right there might be enough. Even just saying that to a doctor might be enough for them to be open. It might be open for them to go, hey, this is a smart patient, and I'm going to be more open about what they might want to try because they see how involved and invested and on it you are. So that in and of itself could lead a doctor to be open-minded and try more things with you versus another patient, let's say.
And so that's when, now I walk into the doctor and they're like, oh, look at your cholesterol. And I say, it's big and fluffy. My HDL is higher than my triglycerides. So go away. We're not talking about cholesterol right now. But, that's kind of the thing is that conversation.
Well, actually, no, I'm glad you mentioned it, though, because a lot of hypo people are put on statins. When you're hypothyroid, your lipid panel is all screwed up. And when you get optimized on thyroid hormones or fix a problem naturally, it gets back to normal. So a lot of people, again, this is the other thing about putting Band-Aids, not getting to the root of the problem, which we haven't talked about yet, but that's part of functional medicine, right? You go to an MD, you're looking to get a prescription or surgery. They are not there to talk nutrition. Most of them don't even know about it. Most of them definitely don't know how to treat or know that you even can affect autoimmunity with food or anything else and lifestyle. So, it's like most of the time you're going to go to a regular doctor, they're going to put a Band-Aid on something. They're not really interested in getting to the root of the problem. They're interested in making you feel better for the moment. So my first symptom was bleeding all the time and having my period every couple of weeks. And the doctor's answer to that was to put me on the birth control pill to control that versus saying, why is a 30-year-old having these problems? It was all related to my thyroid. So that's another reason why you got to get involved, because you need to also try to get to and research the bottom of what could be causing or behind your problem. And then that'll help you find the right doctor and the right solution.
So the last principle you had here on the, basically solving your principles or solving your problems is to adopt a Paleo Primal lifestyle. And effectively, that's the approach I took to fix my health. I eventually ended up because I wanted to lose
your cholesterol problem, didn't it?
It didn't from a numbers perspective, but I did move the needle in what, like I said, moving to the big fluffy, moving the HDL number up, moving the triglycerides down. I did those things. So now I have almost a 2-to-1 ratio between high HDL and triglycerides, which when I walked to my doctor and he's like, well, but your number's 280. And I'm like, I don't care because my HDL is almost 100 and my triglycerides are almost below 50. So, as long as I have that.
And he's worried because he's in a different paradigm, right? He's still in the old paradigm of looking at lipid panels in a different way.
In a way, I said, so let's go ahead and let's do a particle count. We do the particle count, and the big portion of my LDL is big fluffy. And I'm like, okay, we're good. There's no more reason for us to have the cholesterol conversation. As long as my HDL triglyceride number is the way it is, all your other risk factors show that I don't have that risk. So let's move on to a different conversation of what are the other things that I can optimize in my health, because these things I'm comfortable with. And that's just a conversation. It took me a long time to educate myself and get ready to have that. And it was really, truly a paleo, a clean eating lifestyle that really kind of gave me that place, that footing where I was healthy enough and understood things well enough to know that I was doing what I was responsible for my body to do, the things I could control. And that's what I really like about the Paleo Primal lifestyle is that's what this is all about. Everything here is not about being prescribed a medication that, is controlled. You can't get to unless you have a prescription. This is literally everything here is something that you can do today to be a healthier human. And so do you mind kind of going through some of the principles you have related to the paleo/primal lifestyle?
Yeah, just in general, right? Well, here's the thing. There's a big misconception. I like to start out with misconceptions because this happens all the time. So people think that Paleo Primal or Ancestral Evolutionary, they all mean the same thing, by the way. They think that it's just a list of foods you do and don't eat. And that could be further from the truth. That is part of it. But it is about aligning ourselves with what our DNA and what our genetic makeup expects of us. And that is to be fueled by fat and on fat, not on sugar. Most people in this world, most people in this country are sugar burners versus fat burners. Now, it's not to say a sugar burner isn't actually burning fat, but let me define that. How do you know you're a sugar burner? Anyone listening or know anyone who has to eat every 2-3 hours, if you can't go 8 to 24 hours without food and not have a mental drop or a drop in energy, most people can't say that they can. But if you're fat adapted, meaning you've switched over the metabolic machinery to what it expects, usually takes 21 days to a month to kind of turn that around. There's a little bit of suffering in that first couple of weeks when you're coming off being a glucose dependent, meaning your brain and your body is functioning dependent on glucose. Now, if you're in that paradigm, you better eat every 2-3 hours. You better, because you're going to have mental breakdowns, you're going to get cranky, you're going to get hangry, and you're also going to become catabolic in your muscular situation. So if you're in that paradigm, that's what you have to do. But we are not designed that way. That's why that paradigm is very stressful, and it's a struggle because you have to eat every 2-3 hours. Not only that, you're hungry every 2-3 hours, these energy drops. It makes no sense in the natural world of living beings. We are the only living things that have like food addictions and food issues. And you know what I mean? Animals don't have to eat more than once or twice a day. And we're actually the same way. We were meant to literally burn and be fueled by fat. So that's a transition that has to be made. You can still be a sugar burner and eat from a Paleo Primal food list. You can eat a lot of fruit. You can still be eating high carb, low fat, not enough protein. So it's Paleo Primal is a high fat, moderate protein, low carb eating paradigm that is aligned with our genetics and as human beings. And people don't understand that. And so if you've gone Paleo Primal and you lost weight and you did well, but it was a struggle mentally, like with willpower in terms of food, then you didn't do it right. And that's the freedom of going Paleo Primal, is if you do it right and you get fat adapted, food is the last thing on your mind anymore, which is a shocker for most people that were food obsessed like me most of my life. And you can still achieve a good body by being a sugar burner and eating that zone diet, eating every 2-3 hours and grazing, but it's going to involve suffering and the restriction of calories, and the satiety ratio is going to be really bad. So when you become fat adapted, I mean, literally, if from right now, I mean, it's 6:15 where I am p.m. If I had no food from right now until tomorrow at the same time, I would probably have no issues at all. I might be like, oh, okay, I'm getting maybe a little hungry, but I literally would still be functioning at pretty full capacity. Not so if you're a sugar burner. You'd be passed out, cranky, tired, have to sleep, dying of hunger, emotionally exhausted. So people don't know that component, which is it's about getting fat adapted and moving from being a sugar burner to a fat burner. That's achieved really in 4 weeks, but that is what people don't know. So that's kind of, I'd like to start off there because I think that's just a big misconception.
And I think one of the core concepts behind that, and the reason, I think people get concerned, like say, well, you're not going to eat for 24 hours. That's not good. Well, the reality of it is when you're a fat burner, you're actually using leptin to determine when you're hungry. And that's on a basis of when your body truly just needs a little bit of extra energy to come into the system versus what you were talking about with a sugar burner is that's literally just blood sugar insulin response that's just basically going through a cycle of pulling all the sugar out of your blood to a point where now you are hypoglycemic. You need sugar or you're going to pass out or get dizzy because your body doesn't have another fuel source that it's really comfortable because there's too much insulin. It can't pull on the fat. So, it's not a function of leptin saying you're hungry.
So I have another fuel source in the event that I would have to, I'm not going to choose to eat for the next 24 hours. But yes, I have another fuel source. I have ketones and fat off of my body that will fuel me for days, weeks, which is how we were meant and designed and created. Whatever you believe, aliens ran the universe, evolution, doesn't matter. If you look at our DNA, it doesn't really matter your beliefs. It's if you look at the genetics and the components of us as humans, it's like we don't feed horses steak. We don't. They're not designed that way. And same goes for us and grains and being glucose sugar burners. Now, I'm glad you brought up hypoglycemia because that's another objection. People are like, well, I'm hypoglycemic, so I can't do this intermittent fasting or be fat adapted. No, actually, if you're hypoglycemic, you got there because you were, unbeknownst to you, became a sugar burner. The only way to become non-hypoglycemic is to become Paleo Primal fat adapted.
And it's going to hurt for a little while.
It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt for first couple weeks are going to hurt.
But once you get past it, then you start teaching your body how to use that alternate fuel source. And it's for many of us, it's an almost infinite fuel source versus what the glucose you have in your muscles and your liver and in your blood is just so small. It's only going to last you less than a day. You're going to have to eat and you can't fast for 24 hours without struggle versus someone who's fat adapted will just pull on their body fat to a point up to somewhere around 78 days. And then at that point, they'll start actually torching muscle. But there's a little bit more to the primal lifestyle that I do want to get into because it is about eating the right things. We could talk
about the activity part.
Yeah. And because the way I kind of put it out there with the food is just basically say, okay, my ancestors, I look at my DNA, I went to, 23andMe, all of my ancestors are from Northern Europe, every single one of them. I don't have anything else, maybe 2.6% Neanderthal or something like that, whatever they want to call it. But all of it's from Northern Europe. And so from that perspective, if I think about what 6 months to 9 months out of the year is like in Northern Europe, they don't have fruit and they definitely don't have sugary tropical fruits. So the fruits they would find would be berries, cranberries, maybe an apple or pear every once in a while. But they wouldn't have a lot of those sweet, sugary fruits. They would eat a lot of leafy greens. They might eat some tubulars. And then, of course, it's all at that point going to be fish and game. And so 90% of what we're going to eat for 75% of the year is not going to be that much plant-based material anymore. And it's going to be predominantly meat and fat. And our ancestors would go for the organs first, because that was where most of the nutrients and vitamins and all that stuff was at. People don't want to eat those things now. They'd rather pop a vitamin pill. And so the primal paleo lifestyle from a food perspective is really just kind of about thinking about what your ancestors would have eaten and then trying those foods again and trying to find a way that you can comfortably eat those foods again. And then over time, your body will feed itself and it will fill that nutrition. And I tell people this, if you eat good food, you end up eating less of it. So it sounds like it's very expensive to buy higher quality, better food. But the reality is you eat so much. Yeah, when you eat less of it, because I walk into a store, if I buy a really good steak, 3 ounces is good. That's all I need. Whereas I used to sit down, I could eat a 24-ounce steak and not feel really full, and I'd be hungry 2-3 hours later. Now, a good quality steak, 3 ounces. So I look back and say, I had 8 meals sitting in front of me. I just didn't buy the right quality of food. And now I buy the right quality of food and I eat less of it. And so again, it's not really costing me anymore. But now, let's shift over into the activity aspects of it.
If you don't mind, I definitely want to do that. I want to just highlight something you said there, because as a former total sugar addict and food obsessor, who all I did was think about every meal all day, every day, think about food all the time. If there's people that are listening that are, trying to break that obsession or trying to get healthy, which, a lot of people who are listening to all these kind of podcasts are, when you hear people in the paleo community say things like you just said, which is, wow, you end up eating so much less food. It's true. You become very calorically efficient. You're able to run on less. That is like a nightmare, right? For a food obsessed, because when you're food obsessed, you're like, but I don't want to eat less food. I want to eat more food than I'm eating now. I don't want to, and I know it sounds terrible to that person, but I'm here to say, once you cross the line, it's like a level of freedom you can't even imagine. And it becomes natural that you cannot eat that 24. I would totally be able to put down a 32 ounce, no question about it. And on top of that, a full baked, like everything, but I can't do that now. That would just be like overstuffed and inflammation for me. That would just not work. But when I was in the old paradigm, or, you were too, I used to do that as well. So it's scary to someone who's already food obsessed, because they're like, I don't want to eat less food.
And that hits their prep, because when you start saying, I want you to start cooking your own food, because I say this as a trainer, I'm like, you're going to spend, you're out of each week, you're going to spend maybe 3 to 5 hours with me, which means you're going to spend 171 to 173 hours somewhere else doing other stuff that can either make this really matter or make this not matter at all. And I said, so a lot of this is going to happen in your kitchen. So you need to cook all of your meals. And they're like, I don't have time for that. And I'm like, no, you literally go and cook your meals. And now, like you said, when you have that freedom to not feel like you have to eat every 3 hours, now it's not this big deal of having to prepare all this food. It's like, literally, I can buy a 16-ounce steak. I can cut it into 4 pieces. I can cook it and I can package it up, and I have 4 meals. Now all I have to do is maybe have a salad with one of them, maybe steam some vegetables with another, and saute some vegetables for the next. Literally, I'm going to spend 5-10 minutes making a vegetable dish to complement the steak that I cooked the night before and maybe 2 nights before. But I literally now have 4 meals that would have been 1 meal. So it would be problematic if I had to cook 4 16-ounce steaks, but taking the time to prepare good quality food and making sure that you're enjoying it. Again, it is freedom, and it is one of those things that kind of makes this all matter. Yeah, it is. It's really hard to talk about.
I did think I was going to go to Overeaters Anonymous at one point. Like, I had a real problem. So I want to tell everyone, it was a nightmare for me. I was the worst sugar addict. I'd make deals with myself, going to the grocery store. Like, if there's a parking spot out in front, that means I can get the package of donuts. I know that world. So if anyone listening's in that, I'm telling you, the only way to ever get over the food obsession and the food addiction and the sugar addiction is by getting fat adapted. And again, like you said, it's going to be painful. First couple of weeks, there's a transition. But the level of freedom is beyond, it's amazing. I always thought something was wrong with me. Nothing is wrong with you if you're that person out there. What happens is, unbeknownst to you, you have, by virtue of conventional wisdom or standard American diet, or just got off track and went on a sugar train, you made yourself into a sugar burner. Therefore, that's why you are in this hell. But once you get out of that, and that's why every success story on Mark's Daily Apple, Mark Sisson, who wrote the Primal Blueprint, and he published my book, every success story says the same thing. They're always like, I never thought I'd ever be able to beat these food obsessions. And that level of freedom is so amazing that you have to go down, you have to try it. Don't be afraid just because we're sitting here talking about how little food we can get away with eating, right? But one day you'll realize this for yourself, and it's an amazing process too, because it makes you so much more intuitive with the digestion and the way things are going in your body and what you need and what you don't. And it's so much fun in that sense, but the freedom is unbelievable. But anyway, sorry, go ahead. We can get into lifestyle.
Yeah, let's get into the exercise a little bit. Not exercise so much, but it's just a physical lifestyle that I think is a little bit different paradigm, because it does kind of go back to saying, what were we designed to do, and how would we have lived our lives before automobiles and Netflix.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about, 3 to 6 hours of activity a day, our ancestors. But the thing is, it was slow and steady. There was no reason for them to haul ass to the top of the mountain. They had all day, and they wouldn't have done that otherwise, because then they're burning glucose and exhausting themselves. If they get too exhausted that way, then they are now prey. So this goes back to, we say in the Paleo Primal world, or definitely Primal Blueprint, chronic cardio, which we consider regular, consistent cardio above 75% of your max heart rate. Usually the general calculation for that is 180 minus your age, 220 minus your age. Max aerobic heart rate might be 180 minus your age, and then you do the percentages. You can also look online and search on the different calculations and studies out there and do some averages. But at the end of the day, what I was doing, and this can also promote being a sugar burner, when you go over 75% of your max consistently, you are burning mostly glucose at that point. Now, we can only store so much in our bodies. So every time you burn the glucose, then what happens after exercise? You're sore and you're hungry because you need to replace the glucose you've just burned. When you're a fat burner, and in general, in order to train yourself in this way, you want to be at between 55 and 75% of your max, because then you're burning mostly fat. And what you'll find is that then you're actually not hungry after a workout, and you are not sore. And again, you kind of have to be on the train of excessive cardio when you're a sugar burner, because here comes the glucose and the carbs. Now I got to go burn it off. Now I just burn it off. And now you're on a hamster wheel of carb and sugar addiction, and it never ends well. And it usually ends up in type 2 diabetes. So once you get fat adapted, that's the whole point too. It's a slow and steady. Obviously, it's also more enjoyable. It's more enjoyable. And the cortisol adrenal connection. So when you are blasting your body, let's say you're running 40 miles a week and you're over that heart rate, you're burning, if you're an athlete, you can do it at a certain heart rate because you're conditioned. But most people are going to the gym, pounding it out, thinking that no pain, no gain. The harder I go, the faster I sweat, the more hot yoga I do, that's got to zap calories. That's a sweaty thing. Actually, that's only going to increase fat around your middle, mess with your adrenals, and keep you on a sugar burning train. So part of this in getting fat adapted is also adopting this lifestyle where once a week you might do a sprint session. Our bodies expect that of us. We're supposed to run every now and then and stuff, but not on a chronic, consistent basis. And that's another problem. And then life becomes even more enjoyable because you can work out less in a more enjoyable pace. My hikes with my friends now are lovely. We go really slow, and it's such an enjoyable thing. Whereas before we'd be hauling it up there because you have this ingrained in you that the harder I go, the more I sweat, the harder my heart pounds, then that means the healthier I'm going to be. And that's, again, another false paradigm to be in. It's the same thing. And this is part of lifestyle, going back to the food with meal times. We're so used to structured meal times. So we feel breakfast is the most important part of your day. No, it's not. Not if you're not hungry. Don't eat. That's how it works in the primal, paleo world. And once you get fat adapted, usually people find that they're not very hungry in the morning, like they used to wake up ravenous, and now they're not. So, all of these things go hand in hand. So there's usually one of these pieces that someone's missing. So if someone comes to me and they're like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but I'm still not doing this, it's like one component is off. Either they are overworking out still at a level that's not good, or they're not fat adapted yet, they're not figuring that out, or there's a carb situation that they haven't addressed. Like maybe they still didn't get the ratios right. Like they're either eating too many fats, too many carbs for them, or there's some element of the food. But the lifestyle is about that. Of course, getting proper sleep. I mean, that's a big thing in our country right now, but that is so important to prioritize sleep and prioritize fun and play and relaxation. I mean, people don't think they're stressed because they're like, I'm not stressed. But there are things in our lives that people don't consider stress that are still stressful. So it's really the big message, I think, and all of it is slow down. You know what I mean? With all of it. And that's hard for a lot of people because we're kind of ingrained to go, work out harder, faster, do. And you know what? That just is, you're constantly tapping the adrenals, when you're in that state.
Yeah, it's so funny to have a conversation with someone who's kind of bought into the old, I'm not going to call them myths, but I guess it's just, it's the wisdom, the wisdom of calories in, calories out. And, And I was like, okay, look, I said, if I go to, when I was training for marathons, I would set up about 3 months out and start training. And I would gain 10 pounds while I was training for a marathon. And everybody's like, how do you gain 10 pounds training for a marathon? And I'm like, well, I would work out really hard for 4 hours, and then I would eat for 4 hours, and I could eat more calories in 4 hours than I burned in 4 hours. And then the next day I would do it again, and I would do it again. And it was like, I couldn't eat enough to fuel myself for the next workout. I just kept eating. And yes, I was burning a tremendous amount of calories at that point in time, but I wasn't burning enough to offset what I was eating. And, I try to tell people, it's like, just realize that if the workout is that hard and it's then making you ravenous, and now you're eating all the food that you have, well, then the math isn't working for you. You're not going to balance that calorie equation that way, because that's just not working that way. Whereas if you took those workouts a little bit easier, and maybe even when you were done, you weren't really that hungry. And it's hard to tell someone who hasn't gone through it, but I'll get up in the morning and I'll go for a long, slow walk. And I may walk as many as 7-8 miles and not think about it. Be gone for 2 hours, just casually walking around, seeing the sights, climbing the bridge, whatever, looking out over the bay, just enjoying myself. And when I come back in, I'm a little sweaty, a little warm, got some sunshine, so I got my vitamin D on, and I'm feeling really good, and I'm not really hungry. So it's like, I'll go take a shower, and then maybe I'll go get a book and sit down and read for a little while. And just those kind of casual moving around, feeling like I've got a little bit of blood pump. I've got a little bit of sweat. It's not like I've been just sitting still for all this time. And then I think some of the other lifestyle things that you think about is our ancestors didn't have chairs. So it'd be very common for them to sit on the floor, for them to roll around, to sleep on the floor, and all those different aspects that now we've got the cushy cushions and the beds and the chairs and all those things. And just, making sure that you're making a point of making movement a regular part of your day, because, yes, we would sit still for periods of time, but we wouldn't sit still in a way that we were so comfortable that we weren't moving. And so there's a difference.
That's a good point. And the standing thing is really important, because here's the thing, even if first of all, 80% of your body composition is what you eat. So even if there's someone out there that's like, can't motivate to exercise, don't want to change 500 things about your life, all you need to really do is get the willpower down, get fat adapted. And the one thing you can do is start to stand more. And if that means that you have a phone conversation at home with your buddy after work, then stand in your apartment and pace and just kind of tinker around while you're on the phone. I had a friend who accidentally logged 1.2 miles in her very small house by just having a conversation with someone, So even if you don't have the time, or whatever excuses you want to build into why you're not prioritizing exercise, that's okay. You can still achieve weight loss and fat adaptation and health, but it can also start with, even like you said, just standing more. My grandmother was probably one of the most beautiful older women. She died at 98. She was hot up until, 90. She was amazing. And she never sat down at a party at her house or anything. She stood as much as she could throughout the day. She never had those old lady swollen ankles with the big shoes or any of that stuff. She was rocking high heels until finally the doctor at 95 said, okay, you have to take off the heels now because you just screwed up your whole entire bones. But at the end of the day, that she stood as much as she could. So if you can't go work out, or you're resistant to that right now, that's fine. Eventually you will get the motivation, because you'll have that natural energy when you get fat adapted. But just standing more. And even if you're really weak, maybe you stand for the first 5 minutes of your favorite TV show and then sit down. And then the next day, try to stand for 7 minutes. It builds. Even with me, I'm very active. I'm active every day, but there are times when I still sit too much and I get in one of those ruts, and then I'm like, ugh. And then the first time I'm standing, I kind of get tired easily at first, but then the more you do it, next thing you know, you've stood the whole day and you're like, holy crap, I was standing the whole day. So you even build up tolerance like you do to exercise to standing, and standing burns calories, and it's better for our positioning, and you're bound to move more. So I'm totally with that whole thing. I love to highlight the standings. It's something simple everyone can do.
And I think just kind of one of the closeout points here is to realize that when you're going through the thyroid issues, you're going to have some energy problems. And so, there's just going to be times when you don't feel like doing things, but you still kind of need to be somewhat mobile. And I think as we're talking here, the low intensity, just slightly moving around, doing something is going to still benefit your body. And so it is medicine. And it's funny, I was listening to something today and they said, Hippocrates may have said food is medicine, but they couldn't figure if that was actually true. But he did say movement is medicine. And so, it is very important for us to make sure movement is a part of our day, a part of our lives. And so don't let the lethargy and all the things that are going to happen because of your thyroid keep you from just doing a little bit of movement. Now, the chronic stuff is just going to push your adrenals way past what they're supposed to be. But the light, casual stuff, the enjoyable stuff, the parts that you said about really kind of just having fun, that needs to be a part of your life because you need to still enjoy yourself as you kind of recover from all of this. You need to have those things to look forward to. So making that a part of your life. And so with this book, again, I just really enjoy how you kind of structured this. You have the plan. You've got all the information in one place. So when Elle says, do your research, this book
That's the research. The book is
it's right here. Yeah, you don't have to go. It
is. Yeah,
you should
it's
go.
Kind of like a manual. I wanted to make a manual that
now,
people
you should
could
get a second opinion because that was the advice that she gave you. But so go do other research. But it's going to lead you back here. I've done enough reading of this on my own to tell you that this is authentic. This is the real deal. And other than the reverse T3, which is not something I was very familiar with, that was really kind of the first time I've been introduced to that concept. But it makes perfect sense. And you've done a really good job of presenting that information here. So I really do appreciate that, Elle. Again, this is it. I mean, and this is the start of your research. If you're having some thyroid issues, get this book, kind of go through it. It's a lot of information, so it's going to take you some time to absorb it. Take copious notes, and then just compare and contrast what's going on in your life, what's going on with your numbers. Get your thermometer and figure this stuff out because you can be your hero for your health and fitness journey. And Elle's giving you a roadmap for that.
Totally love that comment. That's so true. I feel that I am the own success story in my own, and everyone can become theirs. And the other thing too is, the Q&A with the doctor in the back is very compelling.
That was awesome. And that was actually
right.
awesome.
So it's like, if, you're going to hear it from me, but you're going to hear it from a very highly decorated doctor. And if you have a doctor that's open, maybe they only read the Q&A with the doctor if you want to introduce it to someone else medically. So it might be better for them to hear it from a doctor. And I understand that. That's why I have that in there. So there's that available too. And I don't want anyone to pass that up. It's one of the greatest closers, I think, to the book. And as well, it was meant to be a manual for you to help yourself. And, don't let any doctor or anyone tell you that you're going to suffer from X just because you're hypothyroid or because you have a high thyroid problem. That is a myth. This is completely fixable in every way. So don't give up, do not give up if you're out there. Just get on it, hey, and my book's like the cheapest thyroid book out there. So, I mean, there's just no reason not to get it. And even if you can't even afford the book, there's free podcasts on the Primal Blueprint podcast, or Mark's Daily Apple has a few success stories directly out of my book. So if you want to suss it out more and see if it's right for you, there's a lot of free information that I've already given from my book on the Primal Blueprint podcast and in general on Mark's Daily Apple. So, there's a lot of avenues for people to kind of suss it out first and see if it's right for them. But it's a good one.
So Elle, obviously Mark's Daily Apple is a great resource. The podcast, Primal Blueprint podcast, I'll link to those. Are there any other places you would want me to send them besides those two?
Sure. Well, I mean, you can find my book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble and just search for the Paleo Thyroid Solution and find it. But if you want to know more about me, you can go to elleruss.com. And other than that, I think those resources are great for people. Mark's Daily Apple is just a great site in general for health-related things. And there's some of the talk. Actually, I interviewed a couple of the success stories from the book on the podcast. So if you want to literally hear their stories, a lot of people resonate with that because then they hear someone saying something that they're feeling and they go, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. You know what I mean? And so that's really helpful. And I wanted to offer, and you saw that in the book too. I wanted to offer that so that people understood. I mean, one person emailed me and they said, "Are you surveilling me? I feel like you had a camera in my apartment because you're," and it's just like, because people who go through this, we all experience a lot of the same symptoms and a lot of the same tragedies and atrocities that happen health-wise and in relationships. So, any way that I could relate to other people, I've been through it, and I'm here to tell you, it's so achievable.
So this is going to be episode 164. So you can go to 40 Plus
Great
Fitness.
Number.
But you can go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/164, and I'll have all of those links there. And what I'll do is, Elle, if you'll take a moment when you get a chance and send me the links to those podcasts with the people that are from the book.
I will. I'll send you the direct links to those. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll make sure those links are included as well. So again, go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/164, and you can get all of those great links and figure this out for yourself as well. So Elle, thank you so much for your time. This has been completely awesome. We really owe you a lot of thanks for this. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And just keep the faith, keep persevering.
Awesome. If you got something valuable from this podcast, would you please share it? Thank you. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, I'll share 11 of my best tips for getting started on fitness. Until then, have a happy and healthy day.